Hello friends, this is Lada again, and this is part 2 of webinar 11, COVID-19 Catalyst of the Earth Shift and 2020-2026 predictions. I promised you I will have Q&As for you with most of these webinars, possibly with all of these webinars. And I also thought I would be doing all this live, except this first webinar. So I'm going to take this opportunity to again tell you that because of major problems with YouTube live streaming and other programs such as Skype that allow for live streaming and allow for a certain live participation, all webinars will be live pre-recorded like this one, and so questions will have to be submitted in advance, and I will announce how all this will be working for future webinars. For the first webinar, what I decided to do was to choose questions, actually multiple questions I should say, from my two Futurist patrons who are contributing pretty hefty amounts every single month, to whom I'm very, very grateful. I'm extremely grateful to all of you guys. So these two people are among the four people rather, I would say, in multiple questions that I will be answering today. This is one of their perks, one of their bonuses. I promise to answer their questions first and foremost. This is one of the perks that goes with their Futurist patron level on Patreon. Now, I also chose two other people. Their questions seemed very related to the conspiracy and West dominance, etc. Element to this NWO element, very relevant in fact. And so I decided to group them with this. I'm going to answer them briefly as well. And so we have four people and multiple questions, and you will see where I'm heading with all this. First question comes from Anthony. Anthony's question was, there are conspiracies linking 5G and coronavirus. Are they in fact linked? And I can tell you, no, they're not linked. 5G is a technology that is in fact 4D technology. That's lower to mid 4D technology that is being pushed everywhere. That's the internet. There's the next generation of the internet and such. You probably are familiar with this. You can go and read up on it. And 5G technology does cause a lot of illnesses and various malaises in the body, in our 3D bodies, third-dimensional, fully physical incarnated bodies that we live in. All this tech, which is in fact 4D tech designed for completely different composition of a being, let's just say, different energy, different physical composition that is not entirely physical, that is based on slightly different principles. And I'm gonna give you one more tip. It actually comes from grays. Okay, you know what grays are. If you don't, I will be doing webinars eventually on reptilians, graves, dragons, and other species in the universe, and whether conspiracies related to them are true or not, and to a degree, what they're doing here, what they want. So don't miss those webinars and workshops, which we will be doing in the future, because I want to weigh in on that. There is a lot of misconception and hoax related stuff, that is floating around, or fear-based stuff where it's 25% truth and the rest is God knows what, fear mongering, let's just say. So no, it's not related, Anthony. Now, question by Kate. Was Russia under Rothschild dominance in the 90s, 2000s, and did Putin boot them out of Russia? And the reference here, I want to reference The Earth Shifter by Lada. But Kate actually in her question referenced either an article or a post on Facebook or an article in some publication, alternative publication at that, which was written in a very childish kind of like, we are going to get them kind of manner, as if Putin was like banging his fist on the table, saying, Rothschilds out of Russia. So the juvenile way of presentation of that article notwithstanding, because it did not sound like Putin at all. He's an adult in the room. He's not a child. He's not Khrushchev, as Stanislav, one of our patrons, pointed out. He's not Khrushchev. He would not be banging his fist or his shoe on the table like Khrushchev did in 1960s. And so he would be acting as an adult, and he did. And yes, Kate, if we take your question on merit, not excuse me please, need a sip. This kind of stuff makes me want to drink tea. I have peppermint tea here, see, it's peppermint tea. And so on merit, we take this, yes, in the Earth Shifter, my novel, published in 2012, but written between 2007 and 2011. In fact, in that novel, I described the situation. Of course, it's fictionalized, but I described the situation. There are Rothschilds mentioned there. Khodorkovsky, oligarch Khodorkovsky, is named Konukovsky, very easy reference to Khodorkovsky. In fact, we pronounce it as Khodorkovsky. That's the real pronunciation of that name. In English language, it sounds as Khodorkovsky, but in Russian it's Khodorkovsky. Okay, therefore you can easily go to the Earth Shifter, my novel. It's sold on Amazon, and incidentally it's on sale until May 1st if you're listening to this early. And if you have not read it, or maybe you have it at home already, then you can reread those parts that apply to oligarch Konukovsky. And there I talk about the schemes that were run in the 90s by the Russian oligarchs and who they worked with. They worked with Western corporations, and Konukovsky, reference to actual events that happened around 2007, when Khodorkovsky was put in jail in Russia. At that time it became known and Putin acted on it immediately, and Khodorkovsky was arrested and put in jail. The events were such that Russian state, to protect itself, had to act, and the situation was such that Khodorkovsky was about to fly to the US. It became known to Russian intelligence that he was going to sell his company to American oil majors, and that was oil company, and that company that would put a large number of Russian assets into the hands of Americans, oil assets and possibly gas assets as well. And the state had to act to prevent that from happening. That was illegal deal that is not allowed in Russia. And during the 90s, so the majors like ExxonMobil, etc., Shell probably was involved in all this. Excuse me, please. So the thing is that all these majors, yes, Rothschilds have assets in all those companies. Sometimes they have pretty large stakes, sometimes small stakes, but they have many pens in the fire. They actually distribute their assets very, amongst many things and amongst many companies in the world. Okay, that's how globalists act. They try to penetrate in every market and do whatever they can, anywhere they can, and invest this like economic dominance of the world. That's a very well-known factor. That's how US and UK based, in fact Anglo-American based capitalism, globalism, imperialism works in our day and age. This is a very normal situation. So we are talking here, we're referring here to honest to goodness NWO. Now, what was happening in the 90s? Well, on the surface it was robber baron takeover by the oligarchs. But a lot of these oligarchs, most of them on different levels, were financed from abroad. They were fronted capital, and they became like retainer kind of oligarchs, frontmen in Russia for various Western interests. And yes, Rothschilds were right on top there. So I mentioned all this in the Earth Shifter. So remember, I wrote the Earth Shifter in 2007 through 2011. That's how old of a news all this is. And I got my information directly from Russian sources, including serious Russian sources. So if whatever, like Kate and others said, oh my gosh, it's floating all over the internet, so it must be some version of the truth. Of course it is a version of the truth. That article that Kate was quoting from some publication or Facebook, I didn't get that. And the thing is that this is truly old news. So somebody is floating it now suddenly, what they read the Earthshifter, or they discovered this information elsewhere, whatever. I don't hold the monopoly on this information. Point is that this is old news, guys. In the 90s, yes, Rothschilds were very active, and Khodorkovsky was one of their front men, a very prominent one. Then Boris Berezovsky, do you remember that story with his supposed self-hanging in his London mansion, that Russians proved exhaustively, and his Berezovsky daughter proved exhaustively, that actually UK authorities killed them? His daughter proved it. All Russians know the story. He was another asset, and not just by Rothschilds. Okay, so all that said, yeah, there's like very unsavory stories and all that, right? But all that said, listen, guys, do not assign so much power to Rothschilds or anybody that they become gods. Like you basically put them on a pedestal. Oh God, he's a dark god, he's demiurge, right? They're not gods, they're still humans. I actually look at those souls, and I'm going to calibrate that below, because that's a question from Maddie. She asked me to calibrate the level of souls. Just wait a moment and you will see what I'm talking about. I look at them, it's like, they're like down there somewhere. I'm like, what? You know, that's how I feel about souls like Soros, or their game is so clear to me, or Rothschilds. And again, Rothschilds is mythical Rothschilds. You know, there is a real name to those Rothschilds. They have first names. Like, for example, we will be celebrating Evelyn Rothschild, who is arguably right now the most prominent living member of the Rothschild family. You know, don't put them on a pedestal. They're still humans. Okay? They're real people. They act, and they are able to achieve things that they want to achieve only because humans allowed them to. Russians, in their naivete, big part, Russians were very naive about the makings of capitalism, about how capitalism works, how the West works, and what goes into the getting rich and formation of capital, and how all this is achieved. Initially, this is like capital grab. Okay, they wanted to grab power in Russia. They wanted to grab capital in Russia while Russia was weak in the 90s and beginning of the 2000s. And yes, Putin put the end to this. But he did not bang his fist on the table or anything like that. But somebody's confusing him with Khrushchev, obviously. But he did put an end to this. That was a very brave step, extremely brave step. I described in the Putin Enigma, webinar 6, which incidentally, if you never listened to, guys, this is your opportunity to buy my stuff at a tiny fraction of the cost. And listen to the Putin Enigma. I will. That webinar tells you how Putin really truly came to power and what was behind it, how much he was risking, how oligarchs were threatening him when he was already the president of Russia in the year 2000. They would come into his study and into his office and threaten him point blank. That's how much power oligarchs basically backed by foreign capital held in Russia in the year 2000. Putin changed completely the face of Russia, the face of the world. Oh my goodness, if you never listened to the Putin Enigma, if you never watched that, buy it now together with other webinars. It comes in the set, obviously. 60+% off. That's how cheap you're getting it. It's like a fraction of the cost. You know, I can't say enough. You know, this is your chance to buy all my webinars at the fraction of the cost. If this offer will not last forever, it ends when I release the last webinar of this series. You know, so you can buy it while you're buying these webinars. And the link is underneath this webinar. At the bottom, you see the link where to go to buy those webinars at huge discount. You know, you have special link at the bottom here of this page. So Putin did change everything. He changed Russia. He changed the world. He is by far the number one politician, the number one face of a country in this world. He created this revolution so peacefully. It's all in the Putin Enigma webinar. So peacefully, and some of it is already described in the Earthshift, because I modeled President Dobrov, which loosely can be translated to English. I'll give you a trick of the trade. The President Dobrov in the Earthshifter loosely translated into English as President Goodman. You know, Dobro means goodness in Russia, in Russian. So I also, in the Putin Enigma, I actually tell you, I break up the name Putin, Vladimir and Putin, and what that actually signifies. This is a speaking name. It tells you everything there is to know about the man. Okay, so go read the book, watch the webinar, and you will find out lots and lots of things, including this story is also described in my webinar. So this is very, very old news, guys. Okay, yes, Putin did all that. Yes, Rothschilds were there, but don't put them on a pedestal. Look how easily, it was extremely risky, it was very dangerous, it took several years and a lot of tough political will, but Putin and his people did it, and incidentally Medvedev helped him with all that, to take the power back to the people, rein in on the oligarchs. So I say that since 2013 there are no oligarchs left in Russia. Some people argued with me. So basically, some fled to London, Cyprus, US, you know, all kinds of offshores, but the majority adjusted and they began contributing to the country, which is what Putin wanted, and they began paying taxes and playing by the rules. Okay, so that's the answer to this question by Kate. Now we're proceeding to question by Maddie, and Maddie's question is, she asked multiple questions, and I allow this to Futurist patrons only to ask multiple questions even, and I will try to answer them to the extent that I can. So she wants me to calibrate soul dimensions or soul levels of Evelyn Rothschild. I mentioned him previously, as you see. He is arguably the elder of the Rothschild clan, living elder today. Bill Gates, and Amazon's Jeff Bezos. Okay, I'm going to leave Amazon and Jeff Bezos for webinar 13, when we'll be talking about economy and 4D economy and all that, because that plays into that. So I will only calibrate Evelyn Rothschild and Bill Gates right now. And as you know, both are applicable to our story today. If you listen to this webinar, you know. Okay, so again, what is soul dimension or soul level? This so far publicly has only been discussed. I believe I did not put it in public information under Quantum Calibrations page, but go to lada.com. Under Lada's work, go into Quantum Calibrations and you will see my scale there. A lot of you know my scale and also additional information because you had consultations, including my written consultation, which is called Multidimensional Quantum Calibration Report. That's your personal soul, basically blueprint, your soul destiny, karma and mission here on Earth's blueprint. And that's when I talk about soul dimensions or soul levels. Also, if you have a personal consultation via Skype with me, then we also can talk about that, and I can calibrate all this for you personally. But publicly, I have not done this yet. I have not released this information yet, but I will. I promise you, we will have webinars, we'll have workshops where we will discuss all this, and maybe I'll even do some public videos. We'll see how we go. Okay. So what is soul level? Soul level is, say for example, most humans on the planet currently are 3D souls, third dimensional souls. That's a physical dimension. There are some who are 2D souls, and a very, very tiny fraction who are 1D souls. Is extremely tiny fraction. Amongst humans, that is. 1D exists on the planet, very, very small amount. 2D exists on the planet, say in the world such as insect world, or virus world possibly as well. Okay, 3D, that's primarily human dimension right now, and that's where most humans calibrate within 3D, and their souls calibrate within that level. But advanced souls are 4D and 5D right now. More and more of them are being born currently. And all of my clients, and I pretty much can guarantee that all of you who listen to this webinar are either 4D or 5D souls. There are some, very few, 6D souls, very few. And above, there are very, very tiny fractions, 7D and above souls on the planet right now, extremely tiny fraction. The higher the soul you are, the more difficult it is to adjust to physical reality and live here on the planet, okay? 4D, by the way, and again, my patrons have heard me say that, and those who had consultations with me, those who ordered multidimensional quantum calibration report know this as well, because it's described in the report for you. 4D is the dominant dimension right now. The reason for that, we are moving into lower 4D right now. So the internet, for example, anything to do with the internet, and a lot of intellectual work, as well as what we discussed today, guys. What did we discuss today? How biological weapon is developed, conspiracy, how biotech, biolabs, all that. All this is lower to mid 4D energy. It is dark energy. Incidentally, geopolitics, all these geopolitical games, that's also 4D stuff. That's low to mid 4D, usually. Trying to establish order. NWO, that's mid 4D. Middle 4D. Okay, so with that said, isn't that already expands your consciousness, isn't it? Like what I already said, that gives you so much information to work with. So for you personally, you can order multidimensional quantum calibration report, very detailed. I spend a lot of energy and time doing it for you. 22 personal calibrations and additional information inside I give you there. But also, you, as I said, you can order Skype consultation with me if you want to know personally what dimension your soul belongs with your soul mission, etc. But also maybe we'll do some workshops later in the future. At least I plan to do so. Okay, and now proceeding to the actual calibrations of Evelyn Rothschild and Bill Gates, what soul dimensions they are. And I'm sure you'll be surprised, and I'm calibrating everything live right now. So Evelyn Rothschild, calibration of his soul dimension is fourth dimension. That's specifically mid 4D. That's Evelyn Rothschild. Okay, and now you understand everything I told you just now, how it fits with his role. Money, contemporary concept of money is also mid 4D. Okay, that structure that has been developed, that very corrupt, very like uneven structure. So Evelyn Rothschild can only do, and Rothschilds can only do what they're doing because humans allow them to do it, because humans play along with fractional banking, with globalism, with everything that goes on, okay? With this very unfair US dollar or petrodollar based structure, humans allow them, their consciousness is at that level. So you can, mid 4D soul can easily dominate 3D people, or especially 2D people, but 3D people as well. The more we're breaking out of that, the more 4D souls, especially high 4D souls and 5D souls are born, the more rebellion occurs. Case in point, somebody like Julian Assange, whistleblower like that, okay, whose mission is, it is to blow the whistle and question everything that was happening. And these kinds of souls, these kinds of people, truth tellers, those who tell you the truth and really expose things, yours truly included. By the way, that's just one of my roles. My biggest role is to actually take you out of that lower consciousness level and take you, like, elevate you to the 5D and possibly even above, but primarily 5D at this time. Okay, that consciousness, and explain and help you understand and help you like really grow exponentially and clear out the old debris, old karma, and live your destiny. All these are my missions, my primary missions here in this lifetime, here on Earth. And so what we have is that Evelyn Rothschild mid 4D. What do you expect? So the more people are born, like there are 4D, that are above him, in fact, like him or above him, and above, like 5D, the less power somebody like him holds. The less power the system that they created holds. Okay? Keep that in mind. And another thing here, internet and everything that goes with it, computers, that's another 4D technology, the slow to mid 4D technology. And now let's calibrate Bill Gates with that understanding in mind. And Bill Gates calibrates that. I'm sorry, his soul dimension is 3D, 4D, 5D, or maybe he's 6D, who knows, right? He is, after all, a creator of a major, basically, system. Microsoft is a system. Usually that starts as 6D, something like this. But let's calibrate his soul dimension, and that will be 5th dimension. He is 5th dimension. He's mid 5th dimension. Okay, so he's not reaching 6th dimension, and that is because of his internal corruption. He could have been 6D if his soul was not so corrupted and so embedded in this very corrupt system. See how your corruption or your participation in corrupt dealings can drag down your soul development. He chose to be a part of the corrupt system, and it drags down his soul level tremendously from 6D to 5D. See? Well, 5D also has dark sides. 5D is not infallible. We want 5D because that's a tremendous expansion and elevation of consciousness. It is a lot more humane, but we obviously have to see which side of 5D is light and which side is dark. We have to work with that as well. That's another topic for another discussion, but isn't it interesting? And Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Mary, will be calibrating in webinar 13. Please remind me to do so, because I would like to do that as well. His soul level, that is. He's very interesting as well, because Amazon is going to be doing very interestingly. There will be a lot of developments concerning Amazon, and I want to discuss it in webinar 13. I'm sorry. Okay, and now we are going to the last question, or rather set of questions by Seeker. And he wrote a pretty large comment here in which he asks a bunch of basically questions that he wants me to answer. And so I'm going to be reading his whole comment, and as we go, I'll be answering questions as we proceed. Okay, so Seeker says, this is my personal note on conspiracy theories. My perception is that Lada intends to keep our vibration high, which is needed in times like this. Yes, absolutely, no question about it. As you see, even though we went through conspiracy theories and etc., I kept it on a very high dimensional, high calibration, high vibration level. And that's my intention at all times. So you can trust me on this. I will not go into fear mongering, or I will not go into sensationalism. I'm against that. These are things that are 3D and 4D, and I'm higher dimensional soul. I don't do that kind of stuff, okay? That actually I can't even do that. But I will introduce to you juicy stuff that I find sometimes very entertaining when I look at humans and I was like, what are they doing? It's like, get your popcorn. Anyway, so higher dimensional souls sometimes look at humans and they shake their heads and there's like, what are they doing? That's so sad. They could have done so much better. And sometimes they look at them, oh, look at them, ha ha ha. You know, it really depends. Sometimes it's sad, and sometimes we laugh because we're past sadness. We tried to fix it, it didn't work. Oh well, if they want to do it this way, it's their problem. Okay, so he writes later, Seeker, this is what I'm thinking right now. We are winning, but will there be battles along the way? Yes, there will be battles along the way. Like you, I have a curiosity for truth, yet I do not wish to get to the bottom of all the endless negative stuff. Some true, some not true, some labeled, rightly or wrongly, as conspiracy. Yes, exactly. We don't want to get to the bottom of every bottomless pit of mush and dirt out there. I mean, that's pretty much disgusting, and it's already understood. If humans are doing this, you know, if you heard it somewhere, and humans on any level are doing that, I don't care if they're elites, you know, to me they're just ordinary humans who, because of the human consciousness level, have been propelled to some elite status. But they're not that terrific, so don't put them on pedestals, even dark pedestal for that matter. If you put somebody like Devil, right, or Rothschild or Soros on the pedestal, yes, you want to expose it, you want to tell that story, but do not treat them as gods or demigods. Okay, that would just make me vomit, and then I do not see the flowers in my garden. That's very well put. Yes, we want to see the sunshine. We want to see the positives. We want to pay attention more to the positives, and Seeker is a very positive being, very sunny being, actually. He, kind, nice soul, you know, who's working his soul development and is going really well. And you don't want to bring you down. You don't want to bring your calibration, your vibration down by too much negative stuff. So be careful with that. We want to know. We don't want to close our eyes to that. Like those three monkeys: don't hear, don't see, don't you know, don't speak. No, we don't want to be like those. We want to tell the truth. Yes, we want to be aware of the truth, so they don't pull the Festas on us when we're not looking, like it happened to Russians in the 90s. The first ones were pulled on Russians left and right. Like a lot of Americans complained that they also did not agree to this kind of system that currently exists. And not just Americans, Europeans do not agree with everything, and they feel like decisions are being made without their participation. So you want to expose the truth, yes, but you don't want to focus only on negatives. And there are people like on Futurist Trends, for example. That's why I stopped posting as much stuff there for free, my blog, that is, if you're not familiar. And it has a ton of visitors still, and it used to have tons and tons of visitors every single day. And some of those people would say, how come you're not talking about these like scandals, like rape, children raping scandals or something like that in the US or EU? It's like, and why should I? I do not specialize in this darkest of the dark stuff, or some other accusations like that. How come you're not talking about this? Or how come you missed that? Or it's like, why should I? I choose what I want to talk about, and I choose it very wisely. And this is why you guys, those who are sunny souls, who are into knowledge, who are into truth, that's why you're following me. That's why you're with me and not with somebody else, right? Well, obviously there are all kinds of people, and maybe you follow multiple people for different reasons, but I choose what I want to talk about in accordance with my vibration, which is very high, which is on the level not just love and joy, but also on the level of high creation, guys, also on the level of reason and humanity and compassion, depending on which aspect of my vibration you actually take. But my primary calibrations are between love and between high creation. So keep that in mind. You know, talking about rape, that's not to me, that's to somebody else. Okay? All right. So Seeker continues. However, I do tolerate input occasionally, like today when I saw that Microsoft filed the patent. And the patent is about something embedding or, like, you know, splicing what is it called, Bitcoin or blockchain technology into human body or something like that, which is disgusting. Yes, I agree with a Seeker here who says this is for sure factual. To me, the innovative idea sounds sick, but obviously the application number is the most sick part of it. Too coincidental. Do I need verification? Not really. I'm trusting my guts in this instance that it is a sick idea, but it is there. Let us also assume it is there for a reason like anything else. It could also be that in 20 years it will be a ridiculous relic from the dark past before the shift, something we can watch in a museum. Really wise words, by the way, and it depends on which way humans decide to evolve. I can guarantee to you there are already enough people who are 5D people and they're against sick technology, like for example combining machine and a person and making them into these like bio robots or something, which is floating around too. Okay, so into giving too much power to the machine or to creating this combo human bio machine sort of thing. I think that's just as sick as what a seeker is quoting here regarding Microsoft patent. And how humanity will develop. We have enough souls who are 5D, and especially very few but very important souls that are 6D and above, who will prevent that from happening. Also 3D souls are going to be rebelling, and the majority is still 3D souls. But you, of course, you can easily manipulate 2D and 3D souls that are in existence on the planet. They have been manipulated like this for millennia. Why not now, right? So we'll see. But 4D souls, especially low and mid 4D, they're dominant, and high 4D souls, they're different. I wrote about that on Patreon. Remember 4D people, robots versus 4D people with heart? Remember that article? It's a very important article into understanding what 4D actually is and how it works, how these people think, etc., etc. So high 4D souls are very different. They're very humanistic, and you know, those souls also will be moderating this energy a little bit. Okay, so that's where we are basically with this. In fact, the list of similar things is long, he continues. I could include the coronavirus as well. There are some fishy aspects around it, and all the lockdown actions. And I want to mention here again, with the lockdown actions, yes, some are using it for political gain. Some are exercising excess power because they have that power and they're exercising it. Some are doing it out of fear. Some are doing it, part of it is done because the global community of biotech and medical pros, the highest placed on the food chain, professionals, doctors, Nobel laureates in this arena, they advise that quarantine is how you prevent the virus from spreading or slow it down, so the medical system can cope with it. Okay, so that actually, that is a fact, absolute fact. And some took it upon themselves to go further. Some are doing it for political gains, and some are flexing their muscles, but some are doing it in a good faith as well. Okay, it really does depend. Also depends on the country. So Denmark, where Seeker lives, is one of those Nordic countries where they're overdoing things like that. Okay, so keep that in mind, please. So in Denmark, it's definitely overdone. And also, a lot of that is fear. Your government, your authorities at large are fearing, and they are panicked, and they don't know what to do. So not everything is pre-planned. Not everything is a conspiracy. Oftentimes, human fear generates more conspiracies than anything else. Keep that in mind. Inability, like that ineptness of the government can generate conspiracy very easily. Very easily. But that's not because they pre-planned it and they have vicious plan. They are low calibrated, yes. But not because they had vicious plan, because they're panicking and they're overdoing it, because they're afraid if they don't do this, 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 and a million other things, then people will vote them out of office or will blame them, or their legacy will not be true. So, and also the West is turning more and more into this very confined USSR or China circa 1930s, 50s, okay? So keep that in mind as well. So we switch sides here. That's your inverted collapse right there. Okay, so he continues. My perception is that we're winning, but is it a home run? Do you also see it like this? I like to emphasize we, to quote the Bible, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name. There am I in the midst of them, the force, God, etc. Very nicely put. Together we can do things. Is it necessary to reach critical mass, number of people, to make the shift? Is that a wrong assumption? If affirmative, what is the winning strategy? Should it be needed? Do we need to act, march in the street, or is just being on this planet and trying to understand enough by itself? Okay, marching in the street is democratic right and perhaps not that bad of an idea under some circumstances. From my very extensive experience of everything that goes on in the world, marching on the street is somewhere between the third dimension, 3D level in other words, and lower 4D level in some instances, but primarily it's a 3D. Maybe it reaches mid 4D once in a while, but it's not sufficient. Marching in the street will not solve this problem, Seeker, to answer your question, and it will not help us win in a sense. Yes, it will help some people awaken, but those people intrinsically are in the 3D level, and yes, good for them, march in the streets if you feel that in certain situations you actually need to exercise your right to do so. I mean, it's not a call to march in the street, but it's not the call not to march in the street, okay? I'm just constating what I'm seeing as far as dimensions go, and we're talking about that a lot. And as far as like if your government is concealing something from you, of course, it is your democratic, God-given right to act, or to question your government, or to say things, or to gather together, but please do it rationally. Please do it from positive, not from negative. Now, but where he is saying like very important things here, is it necessary to reach critical mass? Yes, it is. Is the 100 monkey syndrome. Remember, once 100 monkeys get how to use that stick, monkeys somewhere else on remote islands where they never talk to each other, by osmosis also get this trick, how to crack that coconut, or how to use the stick to get those coconuts of the tree. So this 100 monkey syndrome, okay, yes, we need a critical mass of enough people, and if you want me to put a percentage on that, I already did that in previous webinars, should re-listen, it's 5 to 10%. Okay, that critical 5 to 10% of the population of the planet. We are nowhere near that, but listen, we are in the process of awakening. Earth shift is a process. Inverted collapse and rebalancing is the process. Awakening and lifting humankind to higher dimensions is a process. And I'm talking consciousness. So yes, and yes, and yes. To many of your statements, Seeker, here, yes, absolutely. Is just being on the planet and trying to be yourself and growing spiritually is enough? Absolutely. Because remember, 100 monkeys, just by you emanating that energy, you act in specific ways, but it is your energy, it is my energy, it is all of our patrons' energy, all of the listeners' energy, everybody who gets it, that's who is going to propel, lift the planet and carry it to that consciousness expansion, to that consciousness lift, to ascension, as some people call it, ascension. You heard this term, I'm sure. Ascension of consciousness on our planet. That's how it will happen. So you are very correct here as far as winning. Of course we're winning. Why wouldn't we win? Basically, we are in the galactic dawn. This is all explained very much so in great detail in my other series of webinars, Forbidden History and Forgotten Origins, again on huge sale, 50% off. It was never this low before. Nobody got it at such a low price. Those of you who have not bought it previously, it's $78 only for the all 4 webinars. That's what links are below this video, below this whole set of things on this same page. Go and buy my 2 previous series of webinars and listen to them, watch them. There is so much information. Galactic dawn, that means the light is coming in, the darkness is going away. This is why we have the earth shift. This is Aquarian age. Okay, and we will discuss that in webinar 14, how it's related to the Aquarian age and galactic dawn. That's how great of a period we're in. It will never be a walk in the park, like, you know, everything is smooth and terrific, champagne and roses. No, no, no. There are a lot of forces who don't want that to happen. They will pulling back. There are a lot of forces that are fighting. There's a lot of infighting within. All kind of forces, including the forces of light, do not agree with each other, guys. Oftentimes because they see it their own way. We're in uncharted territory. We are in not just uncharted territory, we're in the kind of territory that is fully revolutionary. That's the earth shift. That's the new millennium. This is Aquarian age. Lots of important and great things. So that's why I'm doing all these webinars for you. I also, your support is extremely important because I'll try to do whatever I can in maybe on YouTube or some other platforms. You know, I'm not very happy with YouTube, but that's the only public platform where I can do videos for the public as well. I'll try to do some public free videos as well, so that more people find out, and I will be doing workshops. Okay, friends, so this is the end of webinar 11. As you see, my light is going down here. It's getting dark, and I'm going to say goodbye now. I hope I answered all of your questions and all of your concerns were addressed, and we discussed everything there was to discuss. You know, we will proceed to webinar 12 as soon as possible. And so this is the end of webinar 11, and I bid you goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next webinar. Bye.